Growsmarters. I trust you are doing well today. The author of the famous book, The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, once said, "It is the simple things in life that are the most extraordinary." Now, this statement can take on a whole lot of different meanings in a whole lot of different fields. But today, we're going to apply it to the field of science. And that's because today's episode is all about simple machines. And so, what do we mean when we talk about simple machines? Well, simple machines are tools, basically, that are used to make difficult tasks easier, but they have few or no complicated moving parts. They make the tasks easier simply by changing the direction of force or the amount of force needed to complete the task. On the other hand, a complex machine is one that combines a few simple machines together. There are 6 kinds of simple machines. They are incline plane, lever, pulley, wedge, screw, and wheel and axle. Let's explore these fantastic machines together. Firstly, we have the incline plane. Now, the incline plane is a simple machine that helps us to move heavy objects. And that is simply because it is easier to move a heavy object up a ramp than it is to lift the object, because there's less force required. So, I am going to move this heavy brick, and it is easier to do so thanks to this ramp, which is an example of an incline plane. Here we have a lever, Growsmarters, another simple machine. A lever is basically a rigid bar that rests on a point. And how it works is that a heavy load is placed on one end of the lever, and when pressure is applied to the other end, the object can be moved with greater ease. The middle bit of the lever, this bit right over here, is called the fulcrum, and the closer the load is to the fulcrum, the easier it will be to lift. So believe it or not, this simple cinder block and spade makes up a simple lever system. I've placed a brick on one end of the spade, and when I apply pressure to this end of the spade, I'm able to move the brick with greater ease, thanks to this simple machine. Now, a pulley is a simple machine that allows us to move things from a lower area to a higher area by changing the direction of force. It uses a rope and a wheel attached to the rope so that when you pull the rope down, the wheel turns and whatever is attached to the pulley on the other end goes up. You can also use a pulley to lower things from a higher area to a lower area, but this is generally easier to do with thanks to the force of gravity. So here I have a simple pulley system, a rope, a wheel, and a brick attached to the other end of the rope. And as I pull the one end of the rope up, the brick comes up, thanks to the pulley. Simple machine. Our next simple machine is the simple screw. Now, a screw is basically an inclined plane that is wrapped around a center rod. So it does a similar kind of work to the inclined plane. However, the movement all revolves around the center pole. Did you know, Growsmarters, that the lid of a jar is also an example of a screw? So there we have it, a jar full of screws sealed closed with a screw. Our next simple machine is the wedge. Now, the wedge makes our lives easier by helping us to split difficult objects in half. So it does this using a fatter side and a thinner side, just like you see on this axe. And how it works is that when you drive the thinner side of the wedge into or onto a material, the direction of force is changed and the material essentially splits in half. Watch carefully, Growsmarters, with this piece of wood. Thin side of the wedge onto the wood, and the piece of wood is split in half. And last but certainly not least, we have the wheel and axle. Once again, this is a simple machine that assists us to move heavy objects. Without the wheel and axle, the friction caused between the surface at the bottom of any object and the ground is what makes it difficult to move the object. Essentially, using the wheel and axle, the object is lifted off of the ground, the friction is reduced, and it is easier to move. And so, Growsmarters, here's an example of how I will be able to move this heavy trailer all on my own, with thanks to the wheel and axle. And so there we have it, Growsmarters. Simple but effective. I'm sure now all of us have a newfound respect for these objects that are so integral to our everyday lives. And remember, the next time you use an inclined plane, a screw, a lever, a pulley, a wedge, or a wheel and axle, you're not just using any old object, you're operating a machine.